So now we reach the fourth and final stage of the negotiation process, which is the agreement. So you've done the opening, you've moved apart, you've explored the differences and the issues, you've made your proposals. All of the proposals have been agreed, and now we're at the closing stage where we're just going to bring everything back together. Tim.
So if I just share my screen quickly, Mike, then we can get a couple of these points up in front of us. And what is here to say, I think as we've said a couple of times now, summarize and confirm, summarize and confirm, summarize and confirm is arguably the most important part of this stage. And the skill behind it, the skill is to remain firm, remain constant, remain focused, not to lose anything that you've picked up during the negotiation, and ensure that any of the points that have been discussed here really do come across in that final agreement.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we want to avoid is having a 30-minute discussion or a 50-minute discussion, making all of these agreements, having all of these proposals, and only then having one summary at the end, because the vast likelihood is that something's been forgotten, something's been missed, something was misunderstood earlier on, and that can cause you real problems when you think you've reached the conclusion, but the other side isn't aligned with you. So what we're looking for is a process of regular summaries throughout the negotiation process, which makes this final summary much easier because you know that 90% of it has already been confirmed. The final 10% to conclude it just needs to be summarized and confirmed as well. So that's why we say summarize, confirm, summarize, confirm, summarize, confirm.
So you're saying that this piece, this summarize confirm, could happen in the moving apart stage. It could happen in the coming together stage. It could happen if there's an agreement that you see, even in the opening stage of the negotiation, which means you're always looking for opportunities to say, is that an agreement? Can we summarize, confirm, and jot that down, write that note, and bring it up again later in the agreement stage?
Absolutely, absolutely. The importance of summarizing and confirming can never be overstated, because what you're doing is making it's all about understanding. Have I understood this correctly? Have I understood your position? Have I understood that the proposal that I have made has been accepted? And what we don't want to do is to understand something different to what the other party understands. That's where the real problems lie, especially if you're working on an assumption and you're working on an understanding that later on turns out to be false. That can derail the entire process. So summarizing really is the more the merrier. And it leads us into that second point there. Yeah, checking that the solutions are clear, Tim.
Yeah. And so, as you say, really making sure that what you think and what they think are actually the same thing. So not allowing, communication to take the path that it very often takes, which is where people think they're speaking about the same thing, but actually they're not. So checking again and again and again is really the nature of this agreement stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Checking again is so important, and checking that the solutions are clear. This is not just for the understanding itself. You could both understand what has been said, but what you also need to understand is, does this is it specific enough? Is it detailed enough? Does it actually tell us what's going to happen in a week, a month, or a year? Quite often you can make an agreement. Okay, I agree that I'm going to provide you with a better service. That's far too vague. What is the better service? Is it clear? Is it very much, checkable down the line? So checking again and making sure that what's been agreed is clear is super important. We see here then in the top left, don't pass up new opportunities to increase the scope, Tim.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. Um, just because you've reached the end, or you think you've reached the end, if you find a chance and an opportunity to make that scope bigger, and to make the pie that we're speaking about bigger. Don't miss that. So don't feel afraid to go back into the negotiation process and put a new tradable on the table and a new proposal on the table if you see an opportunity to get more value out of it. It might be more value for you and for them. It might just be for you, but if you see an opportunity to bring something else into the negotiation, definitely use that. Yeah. And final point there, what do you think about that, Mike? Getting agreement and commitment.
Well, it seems so obvious and so easy, but actually this is one of the most important steps and something that often is a very common area where things fall apart. You have a great practical discussion, an amazing negotiation, you both reach an agreement, and then nothing happens. There's no change. There's because whatever you've agreed has not been aligned with actually what is going to be done today, tomorrow, next week, next month, etc. So getting the agreement is super important, but the commitment to the next steps and actually outlining what are the next steps. So, okay, we'll sign the contract today. So tomorrow, Tim, we've agreed that you are going to send an email to X person. I am going to make this change. You're going to do that next week, and we're going to check in with each other in, let's say, 2 weeks' time to make sure that these steps have been actioned. So important to not just have the motivation within the negotiation itself, but make sure the next steps are very clear and committed to on both sides.
I work with a company that does conveyor belt systems, and there is a guy called Jack. He is a middle manager who is famous in the organization for his ability to lead and facilitate meetings. And he's also famous for pretending to be Columbo. Do you remember the TV detective Columbo?
Yes, I didn't watch it particularly, but I know
No.
his style and his character for sure.
I'm showing my age here. He's the TV detective in the slightly, disheveled coat. And he was famous for saying, "Let me see if I've understood this correctly. Let me just backtrack. Hang on a second. Let me see if I got this right." And his character is always one. He's a bit laughable, but people always think he's stupid at the beginning. But at the end, they realize that he never lets a point go past without making sure that everybody's understood it correctly. And my guy Jack in this conveyor belt company is exactly the same as this. He constantly summarizes and confirms, and he constantly drives people to express that they have agreed, to say, yes, I agree to that, and this is the next step. I commit to doing this. Yeah, very interesting. So this isn't a part of a negotiation. This is a part of a meeting management structure, and he takes this role on for himself. Quite phenomenal, the skill that this person has, and really it's kind of underlined his importance to the organization. He's literally painted into this box within the organization, completely well respected by everybody that he works with because of his ability to do that and pretty much only that. I'm sure he does other things as well, but that's where he really becomes visible. So is this going to close for us, Mike?
Absolutely, yes. The final section there to close. This simply means bringing the meeting to an end in the way you normally would, thanking your counterparts, shaking their hands, again, agreeing to those next steps, and moving on with your strategic partnership, which is stronger at the end of this process than it was at the beginning.
Yeah. And I think maybe just a couple of words to one thing that we had at the beginning. We've got our process here, which is great. And we've opened well, we've moved apart, we've done a brilliant creativity piece and come back together. And now we're closing. But it's very possible that we'll need to move back into various stages here. We may even need to move back to the opening again if new people come into the picture. We will very possibly need to move back into the coming together phase again in order to find new ideas. So, remaining flexible and open to the potential movements within this final stage is critical.